like to call a meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order on this Monday, November the 23rd, 2020. Mrs. Kukla, read the preamble, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm going to read the preamble for this morning. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meeting according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and can be activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Would you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Donovan?
Yep.
Ms. Britt?
Here.
Ms. Barnes?
Here.
Ms. Faith?
I do see her, but I don't see a microphone yet, so she's probably in the process of logging in.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any postponements or withdrawals? 117th?
Yes, this one was postponed last week, and we sent out notices alerting neighbors that this case was postponed to January 25th, 2021. Just in case there's anybody here today, this case will not be heard. Again, this is 20-149 regarding 3540 West 117th Street. That'll be heard on January 25th, 2021.
Thank you very much. Without objection, Board?
Madam Chair, before we move on, do we have two different instructions associated with that case? We had one that said that the councilman wanted to get more community review, and then another one I thought I read had something to do with writing legislation to rezone the property.
That's what I heard too.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is the second postponement. So the first postponement was made to allow for time for the councilman to meet with the neighbors. Then the second postponement is from the councilman again, and he indicated that he was going to be considering legislation I'm not sure exactly what he's doing with the legislation, but he did state that that's what he's seeking to do right now.
All right.
It seems if that was going to be a viable strategy on his part, that our having a meeting about variances seems premature.
Well, that's why the postponement.
Well, I know, but we're giving it another date. We said here, we'll give you 2 months, I mean, that would be a different postponement. It takes a little while for legislation to make it through council, I believe.
Well, I think they're still resolving the issues of whether there's going to be a zoning change or not. So I think they're still working through that.
Right. So there's a chance that he may change his mind about the legislation.
All right. I just thought I'd make us aware.
A very, very good point. If he moves forward with legislation, then yeah, I think it would make sense to Shannon says there is legislation. Okay.
Oh. Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Maybe you should ask the councilman if he still wants to have a case. Or...
I can do that, Mr. Donovan. I'll send him an email.
Okay,
Without objection.
thank you, thank you, thank you, and welcome, Miss Faith. Okay, I think we got a full house now. We'll go to calendar 20-172. Miss Faith, unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
My laptop was having a Monday morning and wasn't loading very quickly, so I apologize for that.
Did you pour some coffee on it?
Yeah, I
Always works.
have it right here. Yeah. Okay, calendar number 20-172 at 14925 Shore Acres Drive. Daniel Bode and Megan Doerr, owners, propose to convert existing two-car garage into a music room and bath of existing single-family residence in an A1 one-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda.
Okay. Tim?
Will everyone for this case kindly raise your right hand? I'm going to make a statement. I'm looking for a response. 2 words, I do, and then your name. Here we go. Everyone for this case on Lakeshore Acres Drive. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your
Name?
name.
Douglas Wall, architect.
Okay. Anyone else?
Daniel Bode.
Okay. One of the owners?
I do, Megan Doerr.
Okay, the other owner?
Anyone else?
I believe that's all we have.
Thank you very much. History of the property, please, Mr. Cooper.
What, click on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the
Somebody
zoning.
needs to mute their phone. I'm getting all kinds. Okay, go ahead, hon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. I found in the records room a permit was issued in 1917 to erect a 2-story dwelling and garage. In 1918, an addition was made to the property. There are no variances on file. And I only found in the more recent history in 2001, a permit was issued to re-roof the property. Also, Madam Chair, I would like to let you know that we received a letter from the Homeowners Association supporting the variance, and also a letter from Councilman Polensek supporting the variance.
Thank you very much for that. The legal standard will be touching the case on, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting area variances from the off-street parking requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Maurice, who's causing all this?
I think it's Doug's microphone, but he's going to be making a presentation here, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug.
I'd like to hear from the owners, Daniel Bode and Megan Doerr, please. Tell us exactly what you'd like to do. Maybe Daniel first.
Yes. So currently we don't use the garage to park our car. It was one of the reasons we thought having a first floor bath would be an excellent idea. We're also planning for the long run, and we decided that if we built this ADA, that we could live in this, for the long run when we're in our 90s, and if there's ever any need for wheelchair access or anything like that, this gives us an opportunity to have a first floor bedroom and to continue to live in the home. So the plan, we were not aware that this would be a zoning variance at all, actually. And our plan was to continue to park the car where it is currently parked, where I placed a charge point for my hybrid electric car. That's where the car currently is, and after the build out, it would remain there.
Okay, Doug, do we have plans?
Yes, I assumed that you had them already, so I did not upload them for the meeting. I don't know.
Okay,
Yes, we have the plans.
With a survey prepared, is okay, that's on the screen now. And if you recall from the first slide presented by Dan and Meg there, the existing garage is set back from the front of the house considerably. And if we tried to build this, as Dan and Meg's presentation indicates later on, if they tried to build this addition for this first floor future master suite behind the garage, it would create, it wouldn't be possible to connect it to the existing house without going outside, which sort of defeats the purpose of having a ADA accessible master bedroom suite. And as he said, they don't use the garage. The garage is set back, so they're parking their car in front of the garage door, which would, as he said, continue to be parked there. It's not like the car is out in front of the house in a really obvious manner, you know. And so neither they've discussed this with both of their neighbors, and both of their neighbors are in support of this, as mentioned also the council person is. And so we are again converting this garage into a for now music room, but potential master bedroom suite down the road necessary. And one of the other items mentioned in the zoning review was the glass block window, which you see on this drawing in the lower right-hand corner elevation. You see there's some glass blocked in basement windows that would need to be filled in, and they're perfectly willing to do that, although it didn't indicate that yet on the drawings as submitted. So I think, you know, that the site plan also shows that there's really no additional setback room on either side to get a car around, to place a garage in the back of the property behind the current garage. And if there's a garage in front of the current garage, then that would extend out past the front of the house, which is also my architectural view kind of problematic and probably not so appealing for the neighborhood, where we don't see garages prominently featured on the front elevation of these homes.
nor do we like them.
Yes. So I guess I would defer back to Dan and Meg if they had any additional information they'd like to share about, you know, what the proposal is.
I'm just reading the letter from Sandra Jones. Okay, where are you going to put the storage that you've been putting in the garage, Daniel?
So we have done an extensive clean out of our garage. The pandemic has offered us all opportunity to spend more time in our homes. We may consider a small garden shed, but we have really very little other than our shovel for winter time and our lawnmower for the summer that we would need to be storing.
Okay. And who else was sworn in? Are those the only three people?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to point out also, Maurice Rowan City Planning, that the councilman did send us a support letter for this project as well. I can't remember if Ms. Kukla pointed that out.
Okay, yes, Liz announced it at the beginning. Okay, and the next door neighbors and all agree to it. Board questions? Comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
City planning?
Yes, Maurice Rowland, City Planning. The fact that they're not changing the footprint of the building at all. They're just removing the garage. The councilman supports it. The neighbors support it. We have no objection to these variances.
Thank you, Maurice. Doug, you have your hand up?
I would just slightly correct Maurice in that the footprint is being slightly enlarged on the rear. We are expanding the footprint of the current garage to the north towards the lake up to about 4 feet.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. But I guess we were more concerned about the side yards if they were encroaching further into the side yards, which they're not.
Changes there.
Good.
Right.
Thanks, Doug.
And there's ample on-street parking in the neighborhood if they needed the parking on the street, that would be fine as well.
Please turn off the microphones.
Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking.
Okay. Any other questions, Ford?
Madam Chair, just to clarify to Mr. Wall, the architect, I believe item number 3, the variance for the parking space located to a building that contains ground floor windows. I believe that you stated that you were going to use masonry and block those windows up so that they were no longer windows. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I believe then, Ms. Kukla, that eliminates number 3 from our variance list. Is that correct?
It seems that it would, although in this photo, you can see that they are parking next to a wall there with windows. So is Mr. Wall saying that those will be blocked out?
I believe that's correct. Is that correct, Mr. Wall?
No, that's not correct. The basement window we would propose to fill in, but those first floor windows depicted here, the one on the left, there is a slight enlargement of the kitchen, which the window on the left, the single window, and the bank of what is 3, you can only see 2 windows in this photograph, are into the kitchen. And so the front of the house is going to come out and incorporate about 2 feet there to incorporate that one window on the side of the house. And then the other 2 windows that you can see, the full one and this part of one, are into the dining room. So those are not being proposed to be filled in, only the basement windows.
Okay. So the single casement window in the corner is going to be covered?
That will be eliminated because the front of the house, where that bank of windows at the far left of the photograph, the front of the house is going to be expanded 2 feet.
Okay. Okay, so we need all 3. Okay. Madam Chair, I was just reading an article that because of COVID, many people are going to be moving to aging in place and modifying their homes. So what these homeowners are doing is actually on trend with what's going to be happening going forward. I do see that, with the electric vehicle parked there, I think we're going to have to, city planning is going to have to address that going forward, because more and more people are going to be having electric vehicles, and we're going to need a suitable place for them to park that isn't going to require a variance every single time people want to change their vehicles. But with that said, moving forward on calendar number 20-172, given the support of the councilperson, the support of the homeowners association, letters of neighbors in support of this project, and the support of city planning, I move that we approve these variances for this residence.
Second.
Call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes? Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Donovan,
Yep.
Ms. Faith,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Calendar 20-172 is granted. It'll be ratified next week and we will send you a letter.
Thank you all.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
There was the
Right.
letter from the councilman. I did pop that in there.
I'm sorry.
I did have the letter for the councilman in there.
Oh,
It's a moot point right now, but
exactly. Okay, thank you. Louise. Calendar 20-174 at 11510 Edgewater Drive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-174 at 11510 Edgewater Drive. Nancy M. and Maureen H. Russo, owners, proposed to erect a 22-foot by 12-foot two-story addition to a single-family residence in a AA limited one-family residential district. The owners appeal for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinance as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much.
Everyone for this case, please
Yes,
raise
this
your
is-
right hand.
It's raised.
I'm going to read a statement. At the end of it, I'm looking for a response. I do with your name. Here we go. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Kevin Robinette.
Anyone else? Expecting anyone, Kevin?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Are the owners present? One of the owners? I know one is a judge and she's probably hearing cases if she can.
I don't believe so. I believe I'm representing the case on behalf of the owners.
And who is that speaking?
My name is, I'm sorry, my camera doesn't like WebEx. My name is Kevin Robinette. I'm the architect representing the Russos.
Okay, do you have a letter saying you could represent them?
Notarized letter?
I don't believe so.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have that in the file.
Do you have
Okay.
that in file?
Thank you.
Onward we go, history.
Yes.
Hey, pal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was originally zoned one family in 1929. In 1957, it was changed to limited one family. In the records when I found a permit was issued in 1950 to erect a single family dwelling. There are no variances on file, and in the more recent history, I found a permit was issued in 2000 to remove the front porch and erect new. 2002, a permit was issued to re-roof a side porch. 2008, a permit was issued to install a vinyl fence. 2009, a permit was issued to install a swimming pool. Later in 2009, a permit was issued to erect siding on the property. Also in 2009, a permit was issued to re-roof the sunroom and erect a new garage. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Maurice, do we have any other prints other than this picture?
sure.
Oh, the legal standard, never mind.
When we get to it, we have plenty.
Okay, good, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting an area variance from the side yard requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Okay, Maurice. Okay, that's.
I guess we can have the architect make this presentation. I have all your slides here.
Very good. If we could just go back to the first one with the photograph of the front of the house.
How's that one?
That's perfect. The condition that we have is an existing sunroom on the left side of the image, which is the west of the house. It's a single-story sunroom, and the proposed addition is to mimic the footprint of the sunroom with a second-story essential three-season room. There is, in fact, 10-foot setback on the west side and a 12-foot setback on the east side of the home for 22 feet. As I understand the nonconformance, the garage in the rear northeast corner of the property is 5 feet off of the property line, which the interpretation is such that we're under the 20-foot total side yard setback required. The primary residence, including the existing first-story sunroom, has a total combined setback of 22 feet, which I believe meets the intent of the ordinance.
So what they're, okay, that's, I gotcha.
We're not changing the setback situation at all. We're literally building
On top.
on top. Or proposing to build on top.
Uh-huh. So when you say all seasons room, does that mean it doesn't have heat?
It does have a heat. It has a small split system unit. It'll tie into the existing condenser. So it will have the capability to be closed. It'll have the capability to be cooled during the summertime and heated during the wintertime.
Okay. Okay. All right. Board, any questions?
Is somebody ratifying the mathematical equation that the architect just presented?
As far as the setbacks are concerned?
Yeah, somebody on the city side, did that argument hold water?
Well,
in other words, does he need that variance or not?
Mr. Chairman, as far as I know, he still needs the variance. However, similar to the last one, they are not increasing the side yards. They're not increasing their encroachment into any side yards more than what is already existing. So this was just written up for an existing condition. They're only going up, not out.
Okay. It's an expansion of a non-conforming use, basically.
Right, and it's a very, very small variance, really, when you think about it.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions, board? I'll entertain a motion.
I have no further questions, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and make a motion for this. Calendar number 20, calendar number 20-174 at 11510 Edgewater Drive. I move that we go ahead and approve this variance as pointed out by city planning. The footprint is not changing. They're only going up. So there's no further encroachment into the side yard than already exists.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Donovan? Ms. Faith?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Calendar 20-174 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, you too.
You as well.
Okay. Calendar 20-174, like 176 and 177. We'll hear those two together, please, Ms. Faith.
Yes, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-176 and calendar number 20-177, both at 7501 Rutledge Avenue, units number 1 and number 2. Crescent Private Equities, RE2018C owner, proposes to erect a 2-story frame single-family residence with attached garage in a B1 2-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Everyone for this case, kindly raise your right hand. Again, I'll make a statement. Your response is I do with your name. Again, for the cases on Rutledge Avenue, Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Mike McGettrick.
I do, Tom Fisher.
Anyone else? I guess not. Moving on, history.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Kukla?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. And the records are found in 1958. A permit was issued to erect a frame dwelling and attached garage. 1962, a permit was issued to erect addition to the dwelling. There are no variances on file. And I found that in September of this year, a permit was applied for to demolish the current structure. And Madam Chair, I'd also like to state that we have received an authorization letter giving Tom Fisher the right to speak on their behalf.
Thank you, appreciate that. Tom, let's hear from you. Tell us exactly.
Madam Chair, we need the legal standard.
Yes, we should. You know, I want to move this right along.
I'm trying to move right along.
The legal standard, please.
Members of the board, appellant is requesting area variances from the side yard encroachment, maximum gross floor area, front yard, rear yard, and side yard requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And the board should please note that section 32904C1 may restrict the board's ability to grant the requested front yard setback variances.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fisher, ball's in your court.
Thank you. Basically, we were planning on tearing down the structure and because it's on a double lot, putting two 2,500 square foot new builds. As you can kind of see from the site plan on the screen. One of which we do have pre-sold, which would be Rutledge 1. So we've kind of custom build it to the buyer's wants. And then the other one we plan on putting on the market after, we get through the planning process. Essentially, as far as variance goes, do we go through that one by one or?
Please.
Okay. I'd like to try see if I could get Mike McGrettick, if he wants to kind of step in, my architect, to help walk us through the variances. Mike?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So first is 353.05 maximum height allowed by accessory garage is 15. And we are on ours for this address at 1910, and that was by the request of the owner. He collects cars and he would like to put a lift in the garage. So the plate height of the garage is set higher, and the way the lot is set up, we abut to a commercial use and parking lots, and it's wooded, and it's has a 8-foot concrete retaining wall at the rear of the property. So obstruction of views or anything of that nature really would not occur on the property, and that he asked that he would be granted the ability to have this garage height granted.
Okay, this is Carol speaking, and I'm questioning the lift. Is he repairing cars in his garage?
No. He collects cars. It's a car collector lift that you.
I can barely hear you for some reason. Can you get close?
Is that better?
Yes.
He collects cars, and it's a lift that a car collector would use to park their everyday car underneath this collector car.
and I don't understand.
So that was for storage.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so Carol, he'll put one car on the lift and crank the lift up in the air, and the car that he uses every day he'll park under it. So it's a way for space saving. I mean.
Yes.
Okay, fine. What a world. Okay, moving right along. What about the air conditioning unit?
The air conditioning unit will be placed, as you can see on there's a landscape bed on the west side of the property in the rear.
It isn't.
And we can put an enclosure around that, a small enclosure to go with the style of home that is being constructed.
Where is it on this diagram? I can't.
It's the southwest corner of the property. Yes, there you go.
The little red dot, Maurice, that's southwest?
Yes, ma'am. That's it. I'm circling it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That helps. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other comments from Tom?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Let's deal with the setback.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say, Madam Chair. This is Liz Kukla on the 7501 Rutledge Avenue, number 2, calendar number 20-176. There is a front yard setback issue, and as you know, the board is limited in its ability to grant a front yard variance.
So what does that mean in inches and feet?
So the required is, oh, I'm sorry.
Tom or Mike, speak up.
Yes, the required is 20, and we understand that we are at 15.7, which is 15'8" basically, and we looked at other homes on Rutledge, existing and a new build across the street from us. The new build across the street, which is located at 7500 Rutledge, is 18.2 to the face of that bay window, which has a foundation under it, I believe. And then the existing structure at 7421 is 17'8". And we understand that, you know, granting us 20 would set a precedence, but if we could be within these two, it would be much appreciated to allow for a rear yard of some sort for green space.
Also, with the current footprint of the house, I believe Rutledge 2, if we push the house back 5 feet, they would have trouble pulling a car in and out of the garage.
Well, unfortunately for us, we don't have the power to grant a front setback beyond the formulas that are found within our zoning code. Now, did you read the zoning code to see there is a formula there where you try to measure out from your house, and that gives you kind of a mean average as to where the setback could be legally? And did you come up with a number for that?
I did, and I don't. Hold on. Oh, you know what? I don't. Where does
The second house looks like it's set back.
No, I believe the setback on both houses is identical.
It is.
Tom,
What is that, Maurice? The 250 feet? Is it 100 feet? What is that?
The depth of the lot?
No, the amount of lots adjacent to the variance request.
150.
Oh, it would. Go ahead.
Yes, it's 150, and I apologize. I thought I had that printed off, and my computer's doing an update, and I can't get to it.
So there's a formula there. Did you work the formula?
So the main thing that you would do would be to figure out the setbacks of the houses on either side within 150 feet and then aggregate those, figure out what the average setback is.
Yes.
Unless there were houses that were in front of their house setback wide of their proposed setback, then that would be a different formula, but that's not the case here.
Would the setback of the current structure have anything to do with the new structures that we're building?
It's certainly a piece of evidence, yeah.
It's a piece of evidence, but I don't believe it's considered when Building and Housing makes the determination. Unfortunately, Rick Riccardi, our I don't think he's here today. He's having trouble getting in. Rick, are you online?
He would be one of the call-ins, Maurice. I don't know if you can unmute the call-ins or have you?
They're all unmuted. He said he was having some technical difficulties joining the meeting.
So as I apologize. This is Mike McGetrick again. So the house at 7421 is 17'10". The house directly to our east is 20 feet. If you go back to the pictures.
Oh, the ones you sent in?
Yes, yes.
Hold 1 second.
This one, yes, that one right there. And so the one right to the east is 20. So if we do the mean, I don't know why can't find those calculations. I apologize for the delay.
Well, while he's looking that up, Madam Chair, we do have Adam Davenport, the neighborhood planner for the area. He may have some comments.
Please, let's hear from Adam.
Good morning. I joined late, so I was not sworn in. So,
Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thanks, Tom. So I guess I am surprised that the setback that was called out was around 20. I think it was 20, or maybe just over 20 feet. From the aerial and from other, crude measurements online, it does look like it should be a little bit less. I mean, I don't think it would be substantially less, and I don't think it would be 15 feet. But I wonder if the current house is being factored into that calculation. So it is a little bit curious, I guess, that it was 20 feet, because some surrounding houses are certainly less. With that said, though, the houses themselves, whatever happens with placement of them, I think that they should, more or less be pretty close together or pretty equal. I think varying them a lot would kind of look odd for two new houses being built next to each other, but maybe not. The eastern house seems like it could be pushed back a little bit to accommodate the number required. The western house, however, if the garage is that pull in and out scenario that's being shown on the site plan, it will be very tough for them to push it back any further. So and those lots end in a retaining wall kind of slope. They are sloped up to what is like the Burger King, the Lake and Detroit intersection, that just to the south. So it would be very tough for those to be pushed back any farther, or for the western house to be pushed back any further. It looks like the porches go all the way to 20 feet, and that honors the setback. The point of contention, I think, with Building and Housing at the moment is that the entranceway is at about 15.5 feet. So the true facade of the house, I guess, in my opinion, is still at 20 feet or 21 feet. But the entranceway where you step into the house, it's at, I think, about 15 feet. But Mike can
15.7,
clarify that.
which is 15.8 roughly. So I have the calculation. So the mean between the homes to our east is 18. The setbacks, the mean is 18 foot 10. So we do have room to move the Rutledge 1, or the address we have now is 7427 Rutledge Avenue. We can move that back to be more in line, but as I apologize, Adam was saying, was the majority of the face of the home is 21.7 off of the sidewalk, and there is a small 6-foot entry, which is 15.7. So we could move that one back a little bit.
Madam Chair, this is Liz.
Yes.
The only one that needs a front yard variance is Rutledge 2, just for the record.
It's the one that's already sold.
I believe Rutledge 1 was already sold.
Yes, correct.
They're both, Madam Chair, they're both written up for a front yard setback.
Yeah.
Because they're both set back the same amount.
Oh, thank you. I see that now.
Maurice, with your little red dot, show me this, because I think.
Show you, what would you like to see?
The setback. Draw a little red dot.
So you see right here where that's the setback line right there. That's 15 and I don't forget what you said, 15.5 feet.
Yeah.
So that's the building face right here. And then on this one, it's the same thing where the building face is right here. And that's the same distance. As you can see, this lines up perfectly.
Okay.
They're both at the exact same setback.
And Madam Chair, this is Liz. Does the reducing the size of the deck in the back, would that give more maneuverability area and allow them to push the house back a little bit further?
If you're asking, I'm sorry, you're asking me, is that, this is Mike. So,
yeah, Madam Chair, it would be to anyone that could answer that.
We could move Rutledge 1 back and get within that mean of, we would have to move it roughly 2.2 feet, which is like 2'2" basically. We could move that and adjust the deck. The Rutledge 2, the issue is, again, the drive and the width of the subdivided property and being able to maneuver in and out of that garage.
Madam Chair, this is Lori Wagner. I would just say we're dealing here with the board's ability to grant a setback variance, and the board has no ability to grant a setback variance except under the specified conditions. So hardship would not be a relevant factor. First, you need to decide how much of a setback is justified by the properties surrounding it, and then if you have the legal ability to grant it, then you would look into hardship. It doesn't sound like that's the case here, though.
So I guess the legal is 20, and doing the calculation, the mean of the properties neighboring us is 18'10". So I feel that we can adjust them to be able to fit on the properties if we can be granted a setback of 18'10".
And Madam Chair, the only way you would be able to do that is, again, if they present evidence, which would be basically a plan showing the average setbacks for the properties that are within 150 feet of either side of this property. If they present that evidence, then the board would be able to grant that variance under the very strict provisions that allow you to grant setback variances.
That's
So you would like, you basically would like a site plan showing the neighboring homes and their, okay, understood.
Yes, generally that's what they accept.
Okay, thank you. Understood. And then I would submit that to the Board of Zoning, or would it be legal?
Board of Zoning.
Okay.
Postponement.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Do you understand, Mike?
Yes, I understand now what is wanted. I understand now.
Okay. Can I just ask the width of the properties when you subdivided? Because
they are 40 even. It was an 80-foot by 120-foot deep property, and we divided evenly at 40.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to postpone the case till we have that information.
By the way, you may want to do 2 individual calculations then for each of the lots because they have 40 feet.
Understood.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, do not, the porch, as you know, I'm sure the porches do not count towards the setback. Those are excluded. So the size of the porches do not have to be adjusted.
Understood.
Okay.
Then,
do we have a date?
Are we going to go over any of the other items? Or do we just wait?
Well, the air conditioning unit?
Yes, and then the maximum gross area. And I showed the calculation on the site plan showing that Rutledge 1 is 35% of gross area, and we're allowed 50%. And then Rutledge 2 is 37%, and we are allowed 50 on that as well.
Okay, as I'm looking at this, what's on the screen now, the parcel that would be on the left, is that 1 or 2 so that I can number them?
That is 2.
That is 2, and this is 1. Okay, thank you. I should have numbered them. Okay, we're going to postpone the case. Mrs. Kukla, give me a date.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can easily do December 14th.
Okay. Without objection, board?
Without objection.
Without objection.
Thank
Without
you.
objection.
Okay, we're going to postpone the cases. Submit the information to us prior to that date, at least.
Okay. 1 week before?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, Miss Faith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-135, postponed from October 5th, 2020. Address is 1415 Kenilworth Avenue. Kenilworth LLC proposes to construct a 5-story apartment building in a D2 multifamily residential district with an urban form overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinance as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much. Tim?
Will everyone for this case, please raise your right hand. I am going to read a statement. I'm looking for the response of I do, followed by your name. Where's my statement? Maurice.
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, David Mason.
I do, Brent Zimmerman.
I do, Corey Reed.
I do, Dennis McCarthy.
I do, Khalid Hawthorne.
I do, Kate O'Neill.
I do, Susan Shalom.
I do, Jonathan Petrie.
Anyone else?
I do, Donald.
Okay.
I do.
What else?
All right.
I guess we got them all.
Thank you very much, Tim. History, we've had the history. Let's have the legal standard we'll be judging the case on, please, Miss Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the off-street parking requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Who is the Kenilworth representative, Kenilworth LLC?
David Mason.
David? All right, we have a full house of board members this morning per your request.
Terrific.
What would you like to say to all of us again?
I think it's worth it just to do a brief recap. Again, you're looking at the aerial of Lincoln Park. If we could maybe go forward a slide.
Madam Chair, I would assume that since this is a rehearing, that we will have a presentation that will basically use the assumption that we have not heard it before, because I haven't heard the testimony before.
Oh, Tim, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought it was just Kelly.
No.
Okay, I apologize for that. All right.
So treat it like a new case.
Kelly had actually heard it. We just got delayed a few times post that.
Okay. So if then maybe, so this is an area of the site. It's looking south. You can see in the green is the parking lot where our building is being proposed. This site was comprised of the parking lot, the rectory building to the south, which is a residence that was later transformed into a rectory to serve the church. The third parcel that's attached to this property is the Byzantine Church that you can see there, pictured just to the right of the parking lot. Again, I think it's worth noting this started back in 2019. We had a fully compliant proposal that was built on the parking lot and also on the site of the rectory building. We made it 2 landmarks. There was a lot of resistance in removing that home because it is in a historic district. And so we as a development team then regrouped and met with city planning and came up with a proposal that we felt worked with objectives of planning, worked with the requirements of the urban form overlay for the site, and was kind of in keeping with the vision of the development team for what type of project might do very well on this site. We can keep going that through the slides. So this is the area of the site that we were left with. It's about 34% smaller than when we were using the site that you can see to the south, that was the rectory site. This is the lot that we're proposing the building on. Next slide, please. Site plan of the building. Urban form overlay requires the building be built close to or as close to property lines. So we've pushed the building up close to the property lines on Kenilworth. Also 14th, but we did step back. And again, there was a lot of work back and forth with landmarks to create something that kind of worked with the scale of the street as a whole. So we stepped back a courtyard along West 14th. That's our major entry into the building. Next slide, please. This is kind of what we work with folks from Landmarks developing. But again, you can see how we're to the north, the church to the south, and there's kind of a bookending of West 14th with the building that we're proposing. Next slide, please. Forgive me, this is a little bit older. Yeah, this is older. Should have been removed. Forgive me. Parking again is the issue. We're asking a variance for parking. We have 30 spaces, an LOI for 30 spaces, which is the amount of the variance. that are located directly across from the building, across the park from the building. So due east, we have 30 spaces, LOI, and then that's for overnight parking. And then and again, forgive me for the P's that are blue. The bottom of the page on Auburn Avenue, we have another 24 spaces, LOI for another 24 spaces. So we have 54 spaces in total for this project. Next slide, please. We also, if you see the area in orange along Kenilworth, again, as a part of the process, we were asked to develop an area for pickup and drop off for the building. We expect the residents to utilize Uber for transportation. Those folks who don't have a vehicle that they need stored. We also so we were asked to find some off-street parking, or excuse me, we were asked to designate a pickup drop-off zone, again, for Uber, for delivery, whatnot. We worked with city planning and traffic, and we were able to designate the area in orange along Kenilworth as pickup and drop-off for the building. Next slide, please. This is a shot looking at the building from the intersection of Kenilworth and West 14th. And again, in working through the design of the building with landmarks, you can see moving down Kenilworth, we've lowered the building. So essentially, we removed units along the upper 5th floor to kind of lower the elevation of that building to expose a little bit more of the church. That was something that was requested as our, as a part of the process in working through the landmarks. Next slide, please. And then this is a shot of what would be the major entrance to the building off of West 14th. Again, you can see where it's, we stepped the building back to kind of start to get in line with the residences that march along down West 14th. We've got a little courtyard planned at the entry, which would be very nice. Next, please. Plan of the building. We're extending. We've got a secondary. If you look to the top of the page, we've got a secondary entrance off Kenilworth, and again, that's where the pickup drop off. So we're going to continue the paving through the tree lawn to provide access to the secondary entrance into the building. Parking is what we're here for. But this is this project is going to be geared towards folks who may not be as dependent on a vehicle as others, and whether we're 100% successful with that or not, that's still the intention of the project. So it's going to be marketed toward folks who utilize public transportation or ride bicycles. And one of the things that we've done is kind of size these units appropriately. And you can see in the middle of the building, we've got kind of a blank rectangle that occurs on every floor. We've got bicycle parking or bicycle storage programmed on each of the 5 floors of this building. So we can keep moving. First floor plan. You can move through these quickly. I don't think there's anything we need to talk about on the plans. Elevations of the building. Materials. Site plan with landscaping. What we've done is, I don't know, it may be worth noting, but we've kind of, along West 14th, again, we've kind of created an edge. We've got a low planter wall along West 14th, just to get a little setback from the street. But again, it allows us the opportunity to provide some landscaping. Mm-hmm. Lighting. One of the And then, yeah, we've got our LOIs for the parking. So that's essentially, I apologize if I was too brief, because I know a lot of you've heard this a number of times. Mr. Donovan, I think you said you hadn't. If you have any questions, please let me know and we can go into more detail. These are the Auburn spaces that are available via the LOI.
Tim, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to call on Corey Reardon from the Local Development Corporation. Corey?
Sure. Okay. Madam Chair, thank you. Corey Reardon, Executive Director of Tremont West. Hopefully you've received all the letters from the community. A video was also submitted to show the overwhelming non-support and the opposition to this project. Testimony at the show, the neighborhood, the block club, the CDC, councilmen are opposed to this project in its current configuration. This is not, I want to reiterate that this is not an issue of NIMBYism. It's not a not in my backyard issue. In fact, the Tremont neighborhood has supported density in our strategic plan, and we have supported rezonings that have resulted in over 500 units across half a dozen projects in the community. We don't support this project because it is not the right fit for the neighborhood. All the arguments on parking and the LOI is not a legal agreement, it's a letter of intent. All the other projects, all the 500 units that have been built across the neighborhood have parking. Parking is an issue in the neighborhood, and we need to take that into consideration. I don't believe there's any practical hardship on building a project. The neighborhood has been supportive of projects on this site. The first iteration of the project, the block club supported. It was 28 units with 20 some parking spots. So it's not that this is no project here. It's that we want the right project for the community. It doesn't deprive him of substantial property rights. He's able to build a project on the site. And I actually do believe it is against the purpose and intent of the zoning code, because as recently as 2016 or 17, the neighborhood supported a rezoning to allow for a decrease in the number of parking, 2/3, and the urban overlay, and a 60-foot height. So we've supported a rezoning, expecting that the city would then view that as a reset in the zoning code and get the right developments for that site. I don't believe that variance for 49 parking spots is appropriate here, or 38. 30 parking spots. I don't believe that that's something that the Board of Zoning Appeals should grant. I think if there's no parking proposed, that it should be a zoning change. And going back to 2016-17, if that zoning wasn't appropriate, then why would we pursue that now? We should be looking at that from a zoning perspective, not a variance perspective. And thank you.
Thank you, Corey. There was a
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Can I ask Corey a couple questions?
Really?
There was a initial proposal that had less units, and then 29 units that I hear, and they had shown 20 parking spaces that were committed as part of the project. Is that true?
I believe that to be correct, but I would send it back to the architect to answer the specifics of the number of units and the number of parking spaces.
Okay, and we'll go to the architect and ask him the question then. Was that true? Is the way I described that, there was an initial proposal?
That's correct. That is what I tried to describe early on. That is when the building site wasn't just the corner, it was the corner and the rectory building, so the residents next door. So we had some lot area to work with. We had a different kind of approach to what kind of a resident we were looking for. We were able to get some parking on the site then. When we realized that we were not going to get the support from landmarks nor from the Tremont Historic group, we then met with city planning and collaboratively tried to develop some type of a project that we could actually fit on what would be just the parking lot site, which is what we're presenting today.
Okay.
So it's not the same. It's not the same situation.
I understand. In a way, you had more space to work with, and more, at least partial space to work with.
Could I chime in?
And you had less units as part of the formula.
Well, we have larger units that would more likely attract people who would have cars. These are sized to try and attract the type of residents we're looking for, which are folks that aren't dependent on vehicles. Which again, that's the point of contention amongst us and a number of the folks in the neighborhood. But we still believe, again, when working with.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Hey, who's
Can I interrupt real quick? If you're not calling in, please mute your phone. We're getting feedback from your phones. If you're not speaking, please mute your phones. We cannot hear the people that are testifying. I'm sorry about that, David. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think I was close to wrapping up. I just wanted to make the distinction that again, we worked really hard with the folks at planning who were fantastic, and I think we have a project that does fit within the objectives of city planning, objectives for what the city needs in terms of type of product. But the shift was a response, again, to the type of product that we were presenting.
Okay.
2-bedroom units are not going to get folks who don't have cars. It's just that's not what that demographic is looking for in housing.
Okay. In your presentation, you went to some lengths to point out the fact that you have a number of parking spaces committed under a letter of intent. I presume you did so knowing that was evidence that related directly to the parking shortage that's part of the variance request on the table now. So in other words, you just didn't go out and get letters of intent. Maybe the owner could only buy into a letter of intent because the project's not a done deal yet. So neither of you want to make that commitment. But is it to be fully expected that if this variance was granted, that letter of intent becomes a contract, becomes parking spaces for the project?
Absolutely. That's understood.
Okay. Go ahead, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, we had Brett Zimmerman with his hand raised. I'm not sure if he still had something he wanted to add to.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you everyone for your time. I know we're on like round 6 now of this. But you were, just to kind of reiterate a little bit what David said, we're kind of in the rock and a hard spot. As Corey alluded to, we did have a project that had some support, but we had 2 city bodies that said, not over my dead body, you're going to build that, knock the rectory down, despite us thinking at the beginning of this whole thing that it should be knocked down. And so we went back to the drawing board and cooperated with the city of Cleveland. Our only other option was to sue the city of Cleveland, which we probably wouldn't be any further than we are right now. So we had a project that we were going to do that I think Corey and some others in the neighborhood were much more behind. There were obviously some issues that wasn't 100%. We worked with the city extensively for over 1.5 years now to put in front of you what we have right now. The third option is putting a gate around it and parking. Like there's 3 options here, and we really have no other option, to make this viable. In the meantime, the cost of construction is 25 to 50% higher in the last 2 years. So, the density argument, I don't even know if I underwrote this today, if the original project would work. I don't want to argue. We've gone ad nauseum about parking here, and it is what it is, but it's kind of where we're left right now. And it's our belief that this is a great building on a corner that needs to be activated. Otherwise, it's going to be a disheveled parking lot in perpetuity.
Okay.
Thank you, Brent. I think you also submitted a letter that was on the screen for a minute. I couldn't quite grasp it, but I got you better in person. Somebody else, Khalid, I think was what I think he figured.
Can we ask landmarks? Because it seems to be that this would have started as a landmarks issue to me. I don't know.
I don't think Donald Pettit's with us today.
Yes, he is.
He is.
He is?
I'm on the phone.
Oh, okay, Donald. Go right ahead.
I just want to reiterate some things from the last board hearing and what Mr. Mason said earlier. We've seen two projects here by this developer dating back to October of 2019. At that time, we denied a request to demolish the historic house on West 14th Street that would have made that project possible. We worked with the developer to find an alternate solution. This went to the commission 3 times this year. It was approved in July by the commission, pending certain conditions, lowering the rear portion of the building along Kenilworth to 4 stories, creating a drop-off zone on either Kenilworth or West 14th Street, and approval of a parking variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The applicants have met our conditions with the exception of the last one, which is why we're here today. I don't think the commission has consensus on the parking, but you know, it was approved. We do support the project. The vote was 5-3, so it wasn't unanimous, but it was approved in light of all the parking concerns, all the testimony from the neighborhood. So we support the project.
Thanks, Don.
In your deliberation on the project itself, I mean, the most historic building in the formula here, unless I'm wrong, is the church building. What happens to the church? Because it seems like it's kind of getting crowded out of the picture here. And is there a part of the solution that accompanies this project that does deal with the future of the church?
Well, I would agree with you. The church is probably the most important building on the site. In addition to the former rectory, the parcels were subdivided, or there was a lot split, in order to make those properties more viable for future developers. Currently, we don't have a plan for the church, and that was one sticking point at the commission level. But we do have the understanding that, you know, anything that happens to the church or the rectory in the future will have to come back to the commission.
Does the developers, do you have an answer to that question? And Mr. Zimmerman?
This is Sam Messina. The single family home is being redeveloped as we speak. Will stay a single family home in its historic nature, adding to the neighborhood as requested. The church, we've got a few opportunities in front of us for redevelopment. One is a potential phase 2 or tie-in for amenity space to this project. But obviously everything's hinging on today's meeting.
Okay, there was somebody else wanting.
Madam Chair, we have Khalid and Councilman McCormick with their hands raised.
Oh, okay. Let's do Khalid first and then the council person.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chairwoman. So just brief history. When this was denied, the developer had the choice of tabling at Landmarks Commission and coming back with an alternative design, or asking for a vote at that time, which they chose to go through with that vote, and they were denied at that point in time. So I just wanted to be clear on that there was an option to come back with another design for the original project. Also, like I said, it's going from 28 to 46 units. You have a site here that's been split up. The rectory sold off for, say, $150,000. The church was on sale for $400,000. You basically, I don't know if they overpaid or what, but that shouldn't be a burden placed on the community. The parking is a public good and should be shared amongst everybody. Putting this additional parking space burden, which yes, they provided letters of intent for off-site parking. The nature of people is the shortest route of the route of least resistance, which would be parking close to their establishment. They also see parking spaces placed in the bike lane, which is odd that planning would suggest such a thing, but maybe they have some alternative plans that I don't know about there. Also, you have a subsidy that if this was allowed, there would be basically a subsidy on top of the tax abatement and other subsidies that for this project. And we have talked to the developer about what their plans were as far as pricing and things of that nature. Haven't heard anything directly from them. We had pretty much all our when we requested information from them, it's been slow coming back. So we haven't had much contact with the developer during that time where the city was designing this project with them. So it's difficult for us to support anything where there hasn't been that level of engagement. And I've been before you many times as far as on this side of developers, on the side of the community, basically whatever is fair at that point in time. Within this scenario, we were not given that option. So just wanted to put that information out there as you make this decision today, along with all the other information and videos and letters that have been provided by the community.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Good to see you too. And fortunately, I'm going to be chairing the Health and Human Services Committee, which means I'm going to be able to see you less. But we did not have a meeting today, so I was able to join you. So good to see you, Madam Chair. As has been described thus far in the meeting, there's a lot of concerns from the neighborhood regarding the current proposal. My personal opinion on the first proposal, I was with the Block Club, had a very positive reaction to the first proposal. So, again, there's a lot of concerns. I've sat down with St. Augustine's Church, with the leadership there, with neighbors in the community who have expressed concerns over the parking, especially how it interacts or affects the church, as well as some of the surrounding areas. So, I think Corey did a good job kind of outlining that neighborhood concern. I will say that, absolutely, I don't think this has to be a yes or no answer. I think that there can be a great project on this site. I want to see a project on this site. I don't think a parking lot on the corner is the highest and best use. So I do think that working towards a project on this site that could be dense and activate the street, but meet some of those neighbor concerns is the best solution here. And the other thing I would just say, Madam Chair, that is a little bit of a bigger issue, but it pertains to this property. We use the current city zoning code is very antiquated, and so of course, I don't need to tell anyone on this board, you are used to seeing cases in front of you, whether that's a single family home or whether that's a multifamily building. And that's nothing new. The only thing I would say, though, is that this area of the neighborhood, we went through a thorough planning process with city planning to rezone this area. And what we do when we go out to rezone areas of the neighborhood, we say, hey, look, we want to think ahead and say, what do we want to see in this area? And let's create a zoning overlay that will achieve that. And what it also does is it says to people who are looking to invest in the neighborhood, here's a guideline of what the community and the city planning department and the councilman said we want in the neighborhood. That happened in this part of the neighborhood. And on this site, actually, the parking was reduced through the urban forum overlay, which was a zoning amendment added, a couple of years ago on this site. So a concern I have, whether it be this property or other properties in the neighborhood, is when we go through that rezoning process, we tell the neighborhood, hey, we're going to rezone this to better match what we want to see. And I think it's important as a city that we stick to that or as closely to that as possible, because that's the point of going through the rezoning exercises that we have with city planning, with the community, with the neighborhood, with the council person, when we put on fresh zoning is to say that, we're doing this so that, number one, we can lay out what the community wants to see. And number two, when someone's looking to come invest in the neighborhood, they have a guideline of what should happen in that part of the area. So I'm concerned about us recently rezoning areas of the city and then not abiding to that rezoning. Understanding the fact that, a lot of parts of the city have not been rezoned recently, and maybe they haven't been since the 1920s, and it's understood that there's going to be a lot of variances needed there. But again, this is an area that was recently rezoned. So I think we should just be mindful of that when we look at zoning variances in areas that have been recently rezoned. So again, Madam Chair, there's a lot of concern in the community on the current rendition of this project. What I'd like to see is us continue to work towards something that, meets a good, dense development on this project, but also that meets the concerns of the community around parking. I think we can do that. I don't think it has to be a all or nothing approach for this site. And so that's my thought on this, Madam Chair. And again, I think the community expressed support. The last rendition, when there was an element of parking, a reduced element of parking, but when there was an element of parking on the project.
Thank you very much, Councilman.
Madam Chair, we have Brent Zimmerman with his hand raised. Then we have Herb Crowther, Matthew Moss, and Laura McShane.
Okay.
Hi, hi guys. Can you hear me again?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I just want to address something real quick. I don't know what other subsidies Khalid is talking about, but there aren't any. Number one, and I also don't know what happened to all of these meetings we did have with all the different varying organizations in Tremont, because they were at least a half a dozen, maybe a dozen. David Mason could talk more about that. And while I admire, respect Mr. McCormick, Councilman McCormick's statements, there isn't. We've been forced into not knocking down the rectory. There isn't another option here. That is going to be a single family house. You can't gain that back. The density isn't going to be. Remember, we're almost 3 years in the making to this. At some point, you got to make decisions. We no longer have that flexibility. And to think that you can build 3 stories here and put some parking, there's no way that this gets penciled. I can tell you that unequivocally, especially in the environment we're in right now, unless things change dramatically next year, which futures markets are telling us right now that it's not. So I'll pass. I think Matt Moss was next, but I just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you very much, Brett. Matt Moss?
I'm here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I want to provide some facts and overview, if I may, in regards to the specific variance that's being requested today, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay.
They're asking, this appellant's asking for relief under section 329.03 of our code, which in our code tells the Board of Zoning Appeals that in order to grant a parking variance, that the board must determine that granting the variance would not have a negative impact on the neighborhood or on traffic conditions. So with that in mind, we worked with when the developer brought us this project, and again, to clarify about the zoning changes and how we update the code and how the variance process works, this is the appellant's project. And as the planning department, we receive submissions for all sorts of projects all over the city. And generally our job is to try to guide and shape those projects to conform to the zoning code and conform to our citywide plans and any neighborhood plans. So this is the developer's project. And we worked with them to come up with a proposal that tried to meet all those goals while reducing and hopefully eliminating any trade-offs. To that point, I wanted to put together some slides that show you a rough estimate of the count of the street parking within a quarter mile of the site. So this red circle you see on your screen is roughly a quarter mile. Those red lines show the most available street parking that's immediately adjacent to this property. Maurice, could you advance, please? So there are roughly 32 spaces on Kenilworth. This is a part of the road that just immediately west of West 14th Street is under the highway bridge. And based on my observations, which are limited to my ability and time to get out there at various times of the day, various times of the week, there are roughly 32 spaces there, and they're usually underparked. There are 17 spaces along Lincoln Park itself, which generally are fairly available, except when there are events or church services, because there are churches on that street. And then north of Kenilworth on 14th, there are 17 and 10 spaces respectively on each side. And again, spaces aren't heavily utilized either based on my observations, but we are seeing more development happen along as sites like this get developed, and those spaces may become more utilized in the future. So I hope this helps balance your understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood, along with the developer's testimony that they have the intent to lease spaces should this variance be granted. And the other thing I want to mention, and here are some photos I took showing and this is all street parking that's available under the highway, and other shots of street parking at various times of the day. This is during midday on a weekend, and showing that there's actually I took this photo on a weekday. This showing how, depending upon when you're in the neighborhood, the parking is available or unavailable. The only thing I would mention too, in working with this developer, we've given lots of testimony on this project, whether it's at Board of Zoning Appeals or at Landmarks. And the approach that we generally take when assessing these projects is to figure out how they fit into what's going on in the city and what's going on in the neighborhood. Right now, there are 3 other apartment buildings being built in Tremont. Based on my experience, after working several years on reviewing development projects in this neighborhood, it was a lot of single-family homes, a lot of townhomes, and now we're starting to see the investment of multifamily properties, which is really exciting to see. But there are 3 other projects, one on Scranton Road called the Tappan, which was just completed and opened. That site's actually over an acre, 69 units, 101 off-street parking spaces. Electric Gardens, which is under construction right now, over off of Literary near the Towpath Trail. That site's about 2 acres, and it's 130 units and 145 off-street parking spaces. And lastly, the Lincoln, which is just down the street from this project across the highway. And that project is 128 units with 129 off-street parking spaces. And that development site is about 1 acre. And the reason why I share that information for you is because this site is about 9,000 square feet, which is less than a quarter of an acre. So this is a site that has space challenges. This is a site that is constrained in terms of how much can be built here, whether it's housing or parking. And the recommendation we made with the developer roughly a year and a half ago, when they came to us and asked how they can re-envision this project to try to make it work here, given the concerns we have about demolition of historic structures, given the concerns we have about how we use land and space in our city and in our neighborhoods. And because this site is so small, we emphasize the developer that our priority is to create space and housing for people rather than cars, and to take that proposal to the community. And we told them that they would likely face resistance on this issue on providing off-street parking. And so we asked them to attempt and endeavor to obtain agreements on existing lots elsewhere in order to provide for parking if their customers desire it and need it. But I think that's something that we've been clear on, and I think we would also support the board if they requested the developer execute on those letters of interest and or provide a parking study as well to help inform this conversation, again, with facts and evidence to support the concern. I think you'll have heard and will hear continued testimony that parking is a concern. And one way in which we are attempting to alleviate that over the long term is by building more uses closer together so people don't have to drive so much to get around the neighborhood and the city. The automobile has had an irreparable effect on the neighborhood. You can see here just from this aerial, the highways cutting through and how they've changed Tremont. And we'll always probably have automobiles in our lives for at least as long as we're alive. But building a city where we can more easily walk, bike, or take transit is a long-term planning goal we have. And I think that while this project is not perfect, it does fit into our ability to achieve that. So thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, okay, just to update you, we have Herb Crowther next, then Laura McShane, then Susan. I'm not going to pronounce your last name because I'm sure I won't do it justice. And then Corey Reardon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Herb Crowther. I've been a resident of the Tremont neighborhood for a duration of time, and I've owned property there for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of development occur in the neighborhood. And my specific concern is that the parking that's being offered is not within the 200 feet. The curb spaces that it was just said are available are not available. There are a number of events, including events at the church with weddings and funerals and the services that are provided there, and the Pelton Apartments, catty corner to this, currently is using off-street parking on the hospital property, and the hospital at some point in time is going to reactivate the site and going to need those spaces, and is also going to need street parking. And there are other developments that are right across the street and on Fairfield that are going to they're going to have parking needs that spill into the neighborhood, and it's creating a precedence if you're going to allow a project like this to have zero parking, and then externalize that cost to the residents and other people in the community, or other developers are going to have more on-site parking to compensate for this project. And so to me, the issue is whether the developer has really, in spite of going to meetings, has really worked with the neighborhood to solve the problem. There's almost universal opposition to this project, and they have not, in the latest stages, worked in good faith to resolve that. And so I think what Matt said about the duty of the commission to guarantee that there's a community benefit to this private developer's request is that has not been met. And having on the parking that's across the park and at the other end of the park, there are two issues with that. One is that a letter of intent is not binding, and unless it's binding, the permission, the zoning variance should not be approved. And second, there are other developments that are going to need those parking spaces. And then finally, the Holy Ghost Church is not going to have any parking, and there's no commitment except there's no commitment to actually renovate the church and for it to be viable. And if it doesn't have parking and it isn't viable, the developer will shrug their shoulders and say they meant to renovate it, but they couldn't because it's not economically viable. And the fact that they sold the rectory before they had all their zoning approvals is their own lack of planning. If they say they don't have access to that site, it's because they took the action to sell the property off before the project was completely planned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Maurice, who is next?
Laura.
Laura?
Which I think is not actually Laura, but a gentleman.
No, not actually Laura. I'm using Laura's computer. My first name is Chris, and the last name is Pico. I live on Starkweather Avenue, about 2 blocks away from this project. I want to echo what Herb just said and underscore it. The parking, the letters of intent for the parking that the building is relying on are about 3 blocks away from the building. I want to ask the board, would you want to walk 3 blocks to get your car? Would you want to do that late at night? Would you want to bring groceries back three blocks from where your car was parked? Secondly, if it's a bike building, most bikers have a car. That could mean that a car would sit on the street during the day, possibly while the bicyclists are biking to work, and it would block up a parking space for a long duration of time, an off-street parking space. And thirdly, I just want to remind the board that if you grant this variance, and Herb had said this as well, you're setting a precedent for other developers to come in and want to build projects with no parking. And that could create a real nightmare for a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Susan next.
Susan?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
I have just a couple points I'd like to make. My first point is to the whole marketing plan of saying they're going to rent to people with bikes. I'd like to just say, I'd like to know the research. I'd like to know what really was provided to prove that this is even a viable marketing plan that would reduce car ownership.
Somebody's using their computer, they're typing on it or whatever. I'm getting such terrible feedback, I can hardly hear Susan.
Okay, is it better now? I'll speak up a little more too. I just like to say, I don't think public transportation and that the city of Cleveland is in any way set for this much to really prove that this many units could be occupied by people without cars. There's no real marketing plan there. I'd like to bring up the issue of St. Augustine, not just as a church, but as a center as well, as a church that serves the west side of Cleveland and serves the community by feeding the poor, and the necessity that that church be supported by its parishioners and by events and fundraisers that keep that hunger center going. And I don't think it's right for Matt Moss to present the 17 spaces on West 14th Street as available for this personal use of these cars when those spots have traditionally and always been shared by the community. And so if we face a situation where we can never access parking on West 14th because of the overcrowdedness, then we are set historically as a church that has been serving this community for over 50 years with the Hunger Center and is a part of the community and the historical nature of Tremont for 160 years. Because of that tradition, we have a 15-car parking lot. And that is all we have, and no real access or way to expand that because there is no land. So I'd like to say that it's really important to say that businesses and homeowners, as a homeowner, it'll be less safe for me to pull out of my driveway, but the churches and that these spaces are necessary. And then I also want to say too about the parking letters of intent and the use of the church across the park. I walk my dog every evening, and that parking lot, the tenants, the employees that work there are just leaving maybe around 6:30 when all the other people are going to be coming home, and they don't have access to park in there until the employees are gone. And also, I want to talk about the configuration of that parking lot, because while there are single spaces around the building, the rest of the spaces are double parking spots. They're one on top of the other. So whoever is on the inside near the fence, someone parks behind them, they're blocked in. So it's not really a very, it's not configured to be convenient or for people to be easily be able to use it and get in and out, even in the evenings. So the likelihood that people are going to use that, I would argue, is not very likely. And so those are my points, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, let me update you. So we have Corey Reardon next. Then we have Matthew Moss. We have Jonathan Petrea. Looks like he literally has his hand raised. We have David, Kate O'Neill, and then Dan Lotz. So we have a long list of people that would like to speak. So first up would be Corey. Of course, it's up to you.
Corey.
Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate that we use the most progressive planning tools available just 3 or 4 years ago to rezone this site with the support of the community, the support of Tremont West, the support of the planning department, the support of the government to set the stage for what should be built there. And I think that was, we were using the tools available to us through a legislative process, and that should be adhered to. I'd also request, and it might save us some time and because the community put a lot of work into it, is the video that was submitted. There's been over 650 views of the Facebook page on that, and a lot of comments, and it's really telling as to where the community is at it, almost across the board opposed.
Thanks, Corey.
Madam Chair, that's up to you if you want me to display the video. It's 2 minutes and 17 seconds long.
I'd rather hear from people.
Okay, that's your choice. Madam Chair, then we have Matthew Moss next.
Matt?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to wait until residents have had the opportunity to speak if you would like.
Okay.
Okay, then we have David and then Jonathan.
Okay, David?
I just wanted to respond quickly to Susan's comments, because we were asked to meet with Father McNulty at the church and learn a little bit about what the unbelievable work that they're doing, and we told him, and I've written him a letter recently, but we are committed to making certain that West 14th does not become a parking lot for our building. So I've talked with city planning, and we've had some tentative conversations with traffic, and we are going to work with Father McNulty and come up with a solution, be it limiting the time that the spaces can be used on West 14th, but that, I guess, that's important to us too. What they're doing there is really significant, and it's a necessary part of of all the things that happen in our community. And I guess I just, I don't want you to think that we haven't, we're ignoring it. We're committed. If this variance is granted, we're committed to working with the church to make certain that, again, our residents do not impact the hunger center work that's happening out of the church. And as far as the parking across the street, there are 30 spaces that are available. I mean, there are double stack spaces, sure. There are 30 available spaces that are easily parked across the street in the evening hours.
Thanks, David. Next person.
We had Jonathan.
Jonathan and Katie. Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. One of the concerns that I have as well is, and it hasn't been brought up, and I don't want to make allegations, so I would like to throw it at Brad and David to address. I have gotten feedback from neighbors in neighboring communities where they have developers where they convert vacancies into Airbnb. And I think that this project in particular, if that was going to be the case, that they're converting these vacancies into Airbnbs, it would bring a different dynamic than the normal neighborhood Airbnbs that currently exist. And, I think that people would be less likely to observe the rules. And specifically with this particular corner where there is, high congestion, or not high congestion, but there is traffic. There are other residents that live around there, and that they wouldn't respect perhaps even the church's rules about parking there. And then they're gone, and we don't have any accountability. So I would like it if either Brad or David could address those concerns.
This is Brent, not Brad, but I'll address that directly. There isn't any.
Sorry, Brad.
That's all right. No worries, Jonathan. That's not our plan at this building. We have, yes, we do own Airbnb units throughout different places in Ohio, the United States. We own a lot more multifamily units by a magnitude of 100 times than we do Airbnb units, and our intention is to have affordable units on this corner. We're doing that through not having parking.
Thanks, Brent.
Okay, well, we have Kate O'Neill.
Kate O'Neill.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I represent the Block Club with Jonathan as my co-chair. In my 10 years working with this Block Club, we've never had the activity and the interest that we have had with this project. I've heard from residents, from small businesses, the churches, everyone in this region, even through Ohio City, is so concerned about this project. it's overwhelming. And to say we have had 900 views of this volunteer-made video, 50 comments. I've had probably 50 plus emails, and we've had many meetings on this. It's overwhelming, the opposition to this project. It's a severe adverse effect on all the parties who weigh in, more than hundreds. We've just never seen that before. That's my greatest point. I think the LOIs are giving us options for overnight parking, but we don't see an option for daytime. So the concern for the businesses and the people who use this area in the day hasn't been solved.
Kate, my only question to you is the name of your block club.
Thank you. The Auburn Lincoln Park Block Club.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we have Dan Lotz.
Hello. Thank you for Stephen Lotz. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I'm also a member of St. Augustine Church and member of the Block Club, and also a member of the just highlight a few things about the church and the St. Augustine in particular. Matt Moss shared some images of where some public accessible parking is currently. And some of those are on the other side, other sides of the park, a block or more north of the intersection. And the church with the 15 current parking spots is dependent on the public parking that's currently available on West 14th and Howard Avenue, and sometimes Kenilworth and Starkweather for larger events. We have funerals, we have weddings, we have baptisms where the church can be full. We have fundraising events. The church has been around for 160 years. It's a critical institution for the neighborhood. And for those parking spots that we saw that are still available on the streets are ones that, if the immediate spots all around this current proposed parking or apartment are going to be taken, then the parishioners of the church will have to be walking to those further out, less safe, less accessible parking spots. And this includes many, many seniors that belong to the church, many families with young children that would have to cross one, possibly two intersections, crosswalks to get to church. And also, this church is the home of many disabilities, dating back to 1964. It's been the diocese church for the hearing impaired, and home of many Catholic Charities Disability Ministries. And so this is also the home of many programming throughout the week for disabled members of the community. So these are all folks that would have to be parking and walking further out, less safe and accessible areas to get to church, to get to their programming, because of the residents that are certainly going to be parking closer to their apartment building. And so that is a major concern. It's a safety concern, because these aren't just general population people. These are a lot of folks that might have increased vulnerabilities to be walking further from church. Also, the Hunger Center serves 700 people a day. It's well known. It's nationally recognized. The sitting president, George Bush, came and volunteered there in 2004. It's synonymous with the spirit of the community and the altruism of this church. They depend on volunteers. They depend on a high volume of deliveries. For Thanksgiving, they are expecting to serve 26,000 meals this week for Thanksgiving. They serve over 20,000 for Christmas, major holidays. These are going to senior centers outside of the county. It's a major operation. And for those access to the parking and pickup and drop off points are very critical for this church. So I think, two things that have been mentioned. One, that the parking at Our Lady of Mercy Church across the park, if that's overnight parking, those residents will need to be moving their cars during the daytime, which means they're going to have to park somewhere else during the day if they're not taking their car to work. So if they do have a car and if they are biking to work, they have to be putting their cars somewhere else. And as someone who's lived at a place with rush hour parking bans and curfew, the priority spots are always taken by spots where you don't have to move your car 2 times a day. So I can't imagine that there isn't going to be an extremely high demand on parking that's available immediately on West 14th in Kenilworth and Howard. The other is someone had mentioned a parking study. I would just want to point out that right now with the pandemic and the restrictions on public gatherings, I don't know that an accurate parking study could be done that would measure the impact on the church because of that. There's been a major reduction of people attending in-service mass, and certainly, hopefully, that's going to be ending very soon. So in terms of the church, an institution that's been helping the community for 160 years, Tremont in Lincoln Park is really a microcosm of the interdependence of a dense urban, multi-use, mixed income community. And the parking around Lincoln Park has been a microcosm of that interdependence that's been functional. I think if we provide a private development, commercial parking parking that's proprietary, that's going to be fully accessed by their residents, it's really going to disrupt the equilibrium of this part of the community, and I would say certainly have catastrophic impact on the church. One final thing I want to mention is also, as a member of the History Project, we have great concern that a project that does not offer any on-site parking for Holy Ghost Byzantine Church, which is a contributing asset to the historic district, is going to have certainly major impact on any future use of this church. As a landmark, it's very unique. It actually is referenced several times in the Statement of Significance for the historic district, and in terms of an Eastern European Byzantine-style church that's very unique to this neighborhood. And for that to be degraded as a historical asset for the neighborhood is also something that is not in the interest of Tremont as a long-term viable historic district. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Okay, Madam Chair, we have Susan would like to go again, and then I believe Dennis had raised his hands. I also have quite a few letters here in the presentation. Did you want to see those?
Yeah, not so fast, though. I'd like to be able to see where they, what they have to say.
Do you want to have the other people speak first, or do you want to look at the letters first, Madam Chair?
They could speak. They probably have places to go, people to see, things to do.
So we have Susan again, and then Dennis.
Okay, Susan?
Yes, I just want to quickly reference, since David brought up our meeting with St. Augustine, and I do want to say we haven't spoken in a while. And of course, I felt confused when I saw Matt Moss putting up a graphic that showed those spaces as available spaces for the building. So I had no idea if they, were pursuing anything. But I do want to say that clearly St. Augustine, regardless of any thoughts or benefit that the builder may be interested, still supports our community, and we do not support this building on the basis that though we may get some relief in some way, I have my doubts whether it could really work. And I also want to say we stand with the community because this project is not good for our community, and you see the overwhelming reaction that we all have. So I hope I've said that clearly while we, okay.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Who is next, Maurice?
We have Dennis.
Oh, Dennis.
That's what it says on the.
Gotcha.
His name.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Dennis McNulty, retired director of Catholic Charities Disability Services for the Diocese of Cleveland, and also a parishioner at St. Augustine Church. Just to back up what Sue and Dan had mentioned, I want to add, granting a variance may tempt tenants to park illegally right across the street at OLA St. Joseph's Center, which would hinder their services to people with developmental disabilities. OLA St. Joe's is also the site of evening and weekend programs for persons with developmental disabilities, many wheelchairs. These programs would be impacted if parking was limited, even on the street. That's all I want to add.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Keep up the work.
Madam Chair, we still have Matt Moss that wanted to go after everyone else has spoken. Matt?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll be brief. I just wanted to clarify a few points. The parking slide that I showed wasn't an attempt to identify spaces that are specifically for the developer to use. That was just an attempt to account and make you aware of how many spaces are available within quarter-mile radius that I had shown. I think those parking spaces, as with any on-street space in the neighborhood, would be available for any resident or visitor to use. And the residents, if this building were to be built, would be residents of the Tremont community and would have the right to use those spaces if they own a car. And to clarify too, regardless of how often we change or update the zoning code, whether it's within the context of our current Euclidean zoning or in hopefully the new form-based code we are looking to adopt over the next few years, there will always be a place for the Board of Zoning Appeals. You're not being asked to grant a variance from a zoning change that was done a few years ago. You're being asked to grant a variance from the parking requirements of our code, which exist now and have existed for a very long time. So I wanted to clarify that too. And also make one last note that I think what the developer has done, and they mentioned this in the very beginning of the presentation, they attempted to adjust their product that they are looking to provide here based on the limitations and restrictions that we, the city, placed on them through the demolition and the zoning code, the demolition restriction and the zoning code. And I think whether people who live here in all the units don't own any cars, own some cars, or all have cars, in my experience, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So I think in attempting to balance this, having them provide commitments for the off-street parking that they wish to provide would be a suitable compromise in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Madam Chair, did you want to see the
please
go through these letters? There are quite a few of them.
Okay.
From the councilman who we've heard from.
And Corey had a nice letter that I already read while everybody was speaking. Oh, it's nice to see the church submit a letter. Perfect. Go ahead. Next.
Just more of that same letter.
Yes. Well, I know Sister Corita. Fine. Next. And Father McNulty. Yep. Okay. Oh, Mr. Koskis. Yeah, I think he's right. Congestion would harm the district. Okay. Oh, this Susan also sent us a letter, but she testified very nicely. And oh, he represents the museum. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. Everybody has great concerns, and they're very, I wouldn't walk from under the bridge home to that apartment. I'm sorry. Yeah. Marjorie Sheridan. Okay. Kurt Tresca. Eddie Kowalski. Hopes that we'll hear the people. We've been hearing them. And Karen Abbott from the Auburn Lincoln Park Block Club. Henry Svenyak. Yes. Bonnie Flinner of Starkweather Avenue. Okay. Dan Lotz, we heard from Dan. Mary Stepp. Okay. Marjorie Sheridan. Okay.
Oh, we have her twice. Sorry.
It's all right.
That's what I have for now.
Okay, thank you. And I think the people that have spoken today, both those who work for different groups or represent different groups, have spoken very clearly about how the community feels. I will, unless the board has any questions, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, Maurice Rowland, City Planning, just wanted to give a couple of, the City Planning Commission does support the Landmarks Commission decision for this project. However, we do recognize the overwhelming opposition to this project from the residents in the neighborhood. There's been a lot of anecdotal evidence presented about the lack of parking in the Tremont neighborhood. And so the City Planning Commission would definitely support a small parking study in this area. We recognize that, as it was brought up, that right now is not really the greatest time to do a parking study. However, because of the change of our quote unquote normal behavior, but I think that can be taken into account to actually do a competent, well-researched parking study in this area to figure out if this project does make sense or if this anecdotal evidence that's been presented is actually accurate.
Thank you, Maurice. Board, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, before we go to the motion.
Yes, Tim.
Because, the way this case read to me was that we had a project here that was asking for a variance with no parking, NO parking. Now, as we got into the heart of the matter here, we found that indeed there is no on-site premises parking provided by the developer. That's true. But however, there is a 3 or 4 letters, 3 or 4 commitments, if you will, toward off-site parking. Now, I know that there's some language, I don't remember it by heart, that deals with whether or not off-street parking actually help fulfill commitments for parking in situations like this. And perhaps somebody from city planning can provide the answer to that question. I've been on this board for 30 years. And I remember when I first got on it, it became quite apparent that we were unlike other similar zoning appeal boards that you might find. Most zoning appeal boards are there to basically what I would call guard the moat. Don't let anybody across that moat. You have very strict zoning principles and guidelines, and your job is to make sure they're adhered to, and giving away compromise solutions is not the basic business of the day. For Cleveland, I remember when I was first oriented, and I was oriented by a guy by the name of Hunter Morrison. He helped explain that the zoning code we live with in the city of Cleveland was from the 1940s, didn't address very well current conditions, certainly didn't align itself with any of the strategic goals that the city might want to try to implement in terms of its future. Those goals specifically, in this case, have a lot to do with trying to woo investment into neighborhoods and downtowns in Cleveland, and to do so in a way that you do offer help, and help in our case is variances from certain issues. What you find out is, like in a neighborhood like Tremont, you have a lot of cases where people come to you wanting to build on the very footprint of where there used to be a house. It was unfortunately burned down in the 1970s. But we went and we gave a lot of those variances out, and I think we probably did the right thing there. But we created a very dense neighborhood. And from my perspective, I'm wondering if we're getting into now the moment in time when we need a lot more information, and we need to understand whether or not you can continue to woo density without having the repercussions of such that you have negative feedback. And I think that's what we're starting to hear in this case here. We have a lot of the whole neighborhood against this project. Yet I think, and they say it's all parking, which is convenient because there's no parking here. I wonder if it's parking. I wonder if it's just the neighborhood saying enough is enough. We have a hard enough time trying to figure out where we park today. Even some of us who live here have a hard time figuring out where we park today. And anything that comes along could be the greatest project in the world. We just figure we have had enough. And that's it's unfortunate if that's the case, because I think the project, when you look at it, is a nice project, and it is dense, but it's only dense to the tune of 46. If you remember some of the apartment buildings that were rattled off there by Khalid, we're talking 190 units, et cetera. You got some real impact coming your way when you're starting to add those onto the mantra of possibilities. So it's a big decision here. And you could tell by the councilman's, I think, input, one that he's not ready to make. I didn't see him weighing one side or the other. I saw him saying, we got to find a solution. There's one out there somewhere. We need more time. I think that's what you just heard from city planning there with Maurice. I think Maurice is saying, hey, we're not ready. I don't think this is ready for prime time. Let's go do a parking study and see if that can illuminate some other options here so that we don't throw a baby out with the bathwater. And as I look to try to make a vote in a case like this, I don't think there's you always say that you do your job if somebody's pissed off and the other guy's half pissed off. We're bound to do that today if we go ahead with a vote. So I would wonder if the developer would want to take this into consideration and think about calling a timeout to have some reconnoiter on this or not.
Thanks for the comments, Tim. This is Brent. We're happy to do. I guess the question then becomes who's actually doing the parking study. Because if big bad developer does it, then people won't recognize it as being truthful or whatever it is. So what entity is actually going to do this? That both sides of the fence are going to accept this parking study.
Jim, would you care to answer that?
You want me to answer that?
The whole group. I mean, I don't care who. I think it'll
well, I think we got options here. I mean, for speed and efficiency's sake, I would say the local development corporation should be the most nimble. I think that they're having an advisory group, not a big one, but one to oversee it, so everybody's in the loop and everybody has input as to what you're trying to accomplish there would be good. That's how I'd approach it.
Corey, do you have an answer for me?
Well, generally parking studies take money. If I have to privately contract for it, the planning department of the city of Cleveland, I feel, should have done this months and months ago and have the resources as the planning department of the city of Cleveland to complete such action, where we can work with them, work with the community, work with the developer to actually get to the bottom of what is available and what is acceptable.
The developer, finally, Corey, we 100% agree with each other.
Oh, beautiful.
By the way, when you do this parking study, I'd like to add a couple of suggestions to you, because we found out that the city of Cleveland is benefiting in certain neighborhoods: Little Italy, Ohio City, Tremont, some of the Detroit Shoreway. I mean, we can name them off pretty quickly here. And what we're seeing is a similar scenario in each one. And what we don't have is good raw data sometimes. So that when we are asked to give a variance or parking for a restaurant or an apartment building, we don't have the data that says, here's where we're going to put the cars. We do in some neighborhoods, though. So, I mean, one of the outcomes is if you have like a little score sheet that has an understanding of which projects you've committed parking in different lots, et cetera, that helps as we move forward.
Yeah, the one other comment I would make, I mean, you heard, irrespective of, I want to get this project done, and the tenants and residents and stuff of Tremont don't, just because of parking or whatever reasons. One thing that resonates with us, that we agree 100% with, is the importance of the church and the meals and everything else that's being done there. So, like, to me, we're kind of like we're kind of cutting our nose off to spite our face if the study doesn't actually include solutions for that church as well. I mean, it sounds like it's been a 50 to 100 year problem, and every time a development comes along, then scapegoat's not the right word, but the parking issues come back up, which we don't disagree with, and understand that people have disabilities and all those other things. Like, we're not against any of that stuff, and the service that it provides is fantastic. But if we're going to do this, let's do it right so that their service better as well, not just deciding whether or not this project works. I mean, hopefully everybody can maybe agree on that.
Yeah, I got an idea for you.
Okay.
Well, what does everyone think? It sounds like
Yes. Well, how does the board feel about either moving forward with this or having them withdraw and come back at a later date?
I'd put a postponement on it, just and give them a couple months. You know, I mean.
Madam Chair, we have Matt Moss and Dan Lotz both with their hands raised.
All right, I want to hear from Alana. Alana has her hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I think it needs to be said that the video was submitted, the video that was done by the neighborhood, that was submitted to us prior to the meeting. We did have an opportunity to view that, even though we didn't view it during.
Okay, let's do that now. Can we do that now, Maurice? Alana?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I completely forgot about it, and thank you for mentioning it again.
Sure. And then I had some other comments.
Oh, all right.
You want to watch that first?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Go ahead. It's going to take a minute for me to get this ready.
Oh, okay, yeah, continue.
So I'll make a couple more comments. I failed to hear both on either the pro or the con side of statements today mention of public transit and RTA. And so I think that needs to be weighed into the equation by all parties involved. RTA is instituting their next gen redesign, and that's going to roll out in, at this point, estimated of June of next year. My information from Joel Freilich is that service to this area will be changed, the route number will be changed, and the frequency will be increased to every 30 minutes. So I think that's probably going to have some impact on the tenants that might occupy this building and the need for, and the accessibility to public transit and to the rapid station. It would seem to me that it might be an excellent opportunity to incentivize the use of public transit by tenants by working with RTA on this project. And I think that perhaps is something that should be explored. Certainly bring them into the loop on the parking study and, you know, the use of public transit, instead of having all the parking. And I guess, you know, coming from the background that I do, my question would be, and I'm gonna pose this to Corey, just as, you know, I think you serve as the best spokesperson for the community. You know, what if this project isn't viable for you, if this isn't workable, what would your community envision? What would make the community happy? What would solve the problem for you? You liked the previous project, but that's no longer, you know, that's no longer viable because you don't have the other parcel. So given this parcel of land, which is just in excess of 9,000 square feet, I think we you know, we had that number come up in a testimony. What would make the community happy? And I pose that to you, Corey, as the spokesperson.
Madam Chair, can I answer?
Yes, go right ahead, Corey.
Thank you. The zoning that was set forth in 2016-17 timeframe allowed for an increase of density, multifamily, allowed for 60-foot height, and allowed for a reduction of parking. It set the table for the development that is to be expected with some alterations and some parking on this project. I think those things can be facilitated. Additionally, with RTA, I think it's just to mention that 30 minutes in my studies do not encourage an increase in ridership by those with choice, and the planning department should undertake a study of that. I absolutely agree. I have that information. I'd be more than happy to if we had more time to share that, but the 30-minute time frame and then the red line being over a mile away creates practical difficulties to increase ridership based on all the studies that have been done nationally on what institutes it. And I think it's a 7 to 8 minute frequency that you need to start seeing people give up cars and increase ridership to point that would make a project like this a rational decision.
Madam Chair, you ready?
I'm ready. Hit it. Is somebody building something on their?
Yeah, we just broke ground on this site while everybody's in the.
Okay, fine. Bring in the backhoes. Bring in whatever.
And support. But then plans changed. And the new proposal for 46 units with no parking spaces raised strong opposition from everyone. 46 units could house an estimated 92 people and just as many cars. Opponents worry that so many cars parked in this busy intersection 24/7 brings an undue burden to Tremont. Only 3 years ago, the city have challenges finding parking on the street. On top of that, farmers market and festivals nearly every summer weekend crowd the entire neighborhood, not just the park. Developers have asserted the landmarks, Tremont West, and area block clubs that they worked with the city to create this plan. Planners promoted the new zoning that they now want to undermine with this variance. These contradictions are striking. The Board of Zoning Appeals should deny this proposal and insist that the developers adjust their plans accordingly.
Thanks, Maurice. I saw a lot of cars on the street at all times of the day. And parking 3 blocks away, is not going to help the project.
With all due respect, I mean, we're talking about a 2-minute snippet of a video at a time and place. I mean, I understand the point here, but we didn't take a video of 365 days a year.
Well, right now, no thanks.
Let's not make that huge leap here.
Okay, but I go to Tremont a lot. I go to restaurants there and I drive that way to get to Steelyard Commons. I go down 14th and all. They're going to have cars, those who live in that building, and it is not fair to the rest of the neighborhood. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Kelly. I think we have something that's on the table right now, whether the developer and the CDC and the city of Cleveland maybe wants to regroup and go back with this parking study, or do they want us to render a decision now? I think that's what's on the table right now that we need to decide on.
Well, a potential decision with the contingency that parking study validates, an agreement. Sounds like a fair statement.
I don't agree with that statement.
That's the only thing being proposed or asked.
Was that a motion, Tim? Or are we leaving that up to the developer?
It was a suggestion.
Okay.
Um,
Was that a motion? It was just a
It
suggestion.
could be made into a motion if all parties want to get behind it and say that we, at this point in time, we want to take a time out. We want to explore a number of factors to help us in our decision-making process here. Among those which include a parking study, if you can got a couple other things to add to it, feel free. After which we will come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals to cast a final vote.
Would that be a year-long process, that planning?
I don't know about a year-long process. I hope not.
Well, Corey said something about.
Yeah, I mean, if this is a year-long process, we've already
No,
had this 3 years.
We can get a parking study done in 30 days or less. I do them on a very regular basis.
I don't know who was all speaking. I didn't hear or see.
Sorry, that was Sam Messina with the development team. I do parking studies for my clients on a regular basis. We can typically get those completed within 30 days.
It's too bad they didn't do it ahead of time. Could have saved themselves a lot of time. All right, are we postponing this one more time? It will be the third postponement.
We have the ability to postpone. If everybody's behind it, we can make the motion. More like Switzerland.
Wonderful. Liz?
Madam Chair, 2 months would be January 11th or January 25th.
He said he could do it in 30 days.
It's going to be Christmas.
It's going to be the holidays, Madam Chair, so you got to give.
Oh,
it won't be around.
Madam Chair, are you taking any more comments from attendees?
Only if it's something new or somebody new who has not spoken before.
Mr. Lotz keeps raising his hand, although he's spoken.
Mr. Lotz, we have your letter. We heard you before. Unless it's something new, I really would like to move forward.
Regarding the parking study, there's 5 churches that are contiguous to the park, 4 plus the Korean church, and a couple businesses, Our Lady of Mercy. And I'm sure everybody's practicing social distancing right now and with restrictions on gatherings. I just don't, and plus a lot of the what we're talking about regarding the park and the use of the park is typically mostly 3 seasons, spring, fall, and summer. I just don't know that we're going to get as valid as a representation of from the parking study in the next 30 days, given those 2 factors. And that, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
They're going to use the occupancy of the church as the guiding principle. It's not going to be just random.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to give them what, 60 days?
Yeah.
Brent, is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sam was your person who does that.
January 25th. If we could get on the agenda for the 25th, we'll present the materials, our findings, as well as the City of Cleveland plannings. Is that correct? Is that correct that they will perform the study or not?
No.
I honestly, regardless, the developer, I plan on hiring a third-party consultant to do this traffic study. Unless the City of Cleveland wants to raise their hand and perform the study themselves.
I don't see that happening, Maurice. Do you?
Well, I would have to speak with Director Collier about something like that, and we can raise that issue with him definitely. Mr. Reardon has his hand raised.
Corey.
Again, the zoning was just recently changed to reflect the current status of the property and what the best tools that the City of Cleveland has to address those. And I urge you that to take a vote to oppose this project. And I don't think it's a good idea for a parking study to be led by the developer. I do think the City of Cleveland should be involved. They're pushing, the planning department seems to be pushing this project, so they should take the lead on doing the parking study, working with the community.
Thank you, Corey Reardon. Maurice?
Again, Madam Chair, I can't speak for Director Collier. I can't make that commitment at this time, but we can discuss it with Director Collier.
Okay.
I don't see why we couldn't have all of the parties involved in the planning study, regardless of who is actually conducting the study, to make sure that Tremont West, representing the neighbors,
That's right.
has ample input into the study.
What?
The study's completed by a third party. There's no ample input other than research from the folks that actually perform the study. I'm not sure how many of you folks have done one.
Well, just to make sure that everybody feels that is
Even represented.
So
exactly.
what if Sam said, here are 4 reputable companies in the city of Cleveland. Do we all agree to this company or not? Like,
yeah, right. I'll get 4 proposals. You can.
I mean, we can't.
Who's speaking?
This is Sam Messina. I can get multiple proposals and put them in front of the team, if you will, and we can select one.
Yeah.
I think that sounds completely reasonable.
That's the city of Cleveland reasonable approach.
Okay. So you think January 25th would give you ample time?
I will collect those proposals within the next 7 to 10 days and put them in front of you folks, and that should allow us the 30-day timeline in which to turn the study around. We'll present the study the day it becomes available, and if we could get put on the agenda for January 25th, I think we can all hit those timelines.
Okay. Mrs. Kulpa?
Yes, Madam Chair, that works for us.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
This is Brent with the development team. One more suggestion. Any chance, since we've done this 5 or 6 times, that we could be put at the top of the list on the 25th?
Or
that's a Ms. Kukla question.
As long as Chairwoman Johnson is all right with it, we can do that.
That's fine.
Thank you.
First on that day, everybody being on time. Okay. Without objection, board?
Without objection.
Objection.
Without objection.
Thank you. Okay, I think we got them all. Thank you all.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Have a nice
Happy
holiday.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to all of you. Old business?
Madam Chair, we do have one case that was left off, calendar number 20-140 regarding 12716 Buckeye Road. It was granted without conditions, and you received the resolution over the weekend to review.
Without objection.
Without objection.
And
Without objection.
Okay.
And so, Madam Chair, we do have that unique or that rehearing request for West 155th
Well,
Street.
let me go through the old businesses. We're going to ratify 2, 3, 4, 5, and 13. Without objection?
And the one that Liz said she forgot.
Now, 1 is going to be requesting the rehearing. No, we're ratifying 2, 3, 4, 5, and 13.
And Madam Chair, it is correct. Mr. Donovan is including calendar 20-140 for 12716 Buckeye Road. That one was left off of the list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, but not the one on my list.
No, she just told us they had it on verbal.
Okay, 20 dash.
She'll correct the.
Okay, fine. Without objection, board?
Without objection.
Without objection.
Merlin? Kelly?
They can't object. They can't because they didn't hear.
Oh, they weren't there. Okay, never mind.
Okay, now we have a request for an affirmation on West 17th Street, B.R. Canez.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Without objection.
Without objection, and then a rehearing on 155th Street.
Without objection.
I'm going to vote no.
What, Tim?
I'm voting no.
Voting no. she came in late and she didn't hear what I said at the beginning. Are you voting yes for it, Mrs. Faith?
I believe that we decided we were going to rehear it so that they could have more members of the board present, because we didn't read them that they needed a unanimous decision. Is that correct?
Well, we
That's
said
the
it, but she
rules.
missed
Yeah.
it, yes. She came late, so she didn't hear the rules. I'll vote for a rehearing.
So
I'm voting for a
Lori,
rehearing.
so I guess the question would be to Lori Wagner if she could advise us. Do we need the unanimous 3 member vote for this rehearing?
We have 5 people here, don't we?
Yep, they weren't here last week. We heard the case.
But that doesn't matter. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is that you don't need just the people who were here last time. The whole board can vote on this because
okay.
That's why they're making the motion.
All right, Kelly, would you like to read it? Would you like to hear it for the first time?
So she was late and didn't hear that there was only 3 members and she wants a rehearing?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm saying no.
And Marlene?
Saying no.
Okay, there's your 3 no's.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is the director, are we waiting for the director this morning?
No, he's in a meeting now. We were hoping to squeeze him in at 11:30, but now he's in a meeting with the mayor, so we'll have to reschedule.
Okay. Well, Monica, can we do it at 9 o'clock before we meet?
No, well, Lori recommended that if we do that, we'd have to post it in the city record.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Wait, before we leave. You know, I actually went to the website to look up, to see what kind of information, if I was somebody looking for a variance, do I get enough information through that website to let me know that, hey, we can have a hearing if you have 3 of the 5 members here, but you got to have all 3 of them vote in your favor in order for you to get your variance. I thought, well, let me see if I can find that in the rules, the directions, policies, whatever. I couldn't find it. I don't think it's very clear that, that is the way we run things there. And I think we ought to have somebody go and make it clear so that if, they're coming to that website, that's where you get your information these days. It's very evident.
We are still live on YouTube and being recorded. And Mr. Donovan, to your request, we can absolutely add that verbiage to the Board of Zoning Appeals website. As a matter of fact, Lauren Wagner and Liz are working on refining that language as we speak.
Okay. Yeah, because it made me get to wonder.
I'm glad you noticed that. That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, good enough. That's all. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Thank you, since I never go on it.
Neither do I. That's why I thought, well, I better go on.
Yeah,
it's a very good point. And we're also, next time that app happens, we're also going to include the verbiage in the PowerPoint as well.
Good.
So that it'll be at the beginning of each case when we have I can put it underneath the legal standard. As a matter of fact, when Lori reads that, we can also read we can read that quote, whatever it ends up being.
We also need to tell them when, if they are going to opt out, when they're going to opt out. It isn't like you hear the whole case, we're about to take a vote. Hey, remember that idea? I'm out. No, don't vote.
Right. And so that to Liz and Lori, that's something that should definitely be included in the verbiage. And a reminder to maybe Carol that at the beginning of each case, when that is an issue, you can say, do you want to opt out, or are you willing to proceed with only 3 members or however many members we have?
In the protocol, we did say that you would have to opt out before the vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you say that
not right before, though? Not after you've heard the case. Now you're about to vote. Then you say, well, wait a minute. I'm deciding I want to have the full board here.
Well, and Mr. Donovan is correct. That's the way we used to do it in the old days. When we met in person, Carol would always read that before, advise people before each case. What the heck is that noise, Mr. Donovan?
Madam Chair, could I double back and ask, did all the board members read the request for rehearing? It was sent with the resolutions, or it was sent with the old business. I apologize.
Yeah, that email you sent last with those attachments.
Yeah, well, with the old business,
I read it.
attachments with them.
Yeah.